The crystal ships of the Caltharian hegemony cut through space like deadly jewels. Their hulls gleamed with a cold light that had struck fear into countless worlds for 3,000 years. Fleet Admiral Zix Thara stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the unknown star system grow larger on the viewing screen. "Report," she commanded, her forearms crossed behind her back in the traditional pose of authority. "Long-range sensors detect primitive technology, Admiral," reported her tactical officer. "Nuclear fission signatures and chemical propulsion systems. The inhabitants appear to be at early spaceflight development." Zixathara's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. Another easy conquest for the hegemony. Her fleet of 12 dreadnoughts and 40 escort vessels represented enough firepower to level entire continents. These primitives would submit quickly once they saw the futility of resistance. "Open a communication channel," she ordered. The response came from a small world orbiting a yellow star. The transmission was weak and filled with static, spoken in broken galactic standard by someone who clearly struggled with the language. "This is New Geneva Colony. We are refugees from Earth. We have nothing of value to give you. Please, we just want to live in peace." Zixthara laughed, a sound like grinding metal. Refugees. How pathetic. She had encountered their kind before, desperate survivors fleeing their dying worlds, hoping to find sanctuary in the void. They never lasted long once the hegemony found them. "I am Fleet Admiral Zixthara of the Caltharian hegemony," she broadcast back. "This system now belongs to us. You will provide tribute of half your resources annually, or face the consequences." There was a long pause before the human voice replied. We cannot do that. We barely have enough to survive. Our colony ships have traveled for generations to find this place. Please, we mean no harm to anyone." "Your inability to pay is not my concern," Zixthara replied coldly. "You have 1 hour to reconsider, or we will demonstrate the price of defying the hegemony." She cut the transmission and turned to her weapons officer. "Prepare orbital bombardment. Target their primary settlement. A few thousand dead should convince the rest to be more cooperative." The hour passed quickly. No further communication came from the planet below. Zixathara was not surprised. Fear often rendered primitive species speechless. "Commence bombardment," she ordered. Energy beams lanced down from the Caltharian ships, turning the human colony's main city into a crater of molten rock and twisted metal. Flames spread across the landscape as secondary explosions rippled through the settlement. Zixathara watched with cold satisfaction as thousands of lives were snuffed out in moments. "That should send an appropriate message," she said. "Now they understand the cost of Admiral." Her sensor operator's voice cracked with alarm. "Single vessel emerging from the planet's shadow. It's heading directly for us." On the main screen, a lone ship appeared. It was crude compared to Caltharian design, all angles and rough metal plating. Weapons batteries covered its hull like a disease, clearly added after the original construction. It looked more like a mining vessel than a warship. One ship? Zixthara's mandibles clicked in amusement. "Are these humans completely insane? Admiral, I'm reading massive energy signatures from that vessel. Their weapons are charging." "A single primitive ship against my entire fleet?" Zixthara gestured dismissively. "Destroy it." The first exchange of fire revealed how wrong she was. The human ship moved like nothing Zixathara had ever seen. It twisted and rolled through space with impossible agility, avoiding the Caltharian energy beams while returning fire with weapons that defied explanation. Solid projectiles moving at incredible speed punched through energy shields as if they were paper. Point defense systems tracked and destroyed incoming missiles with surgical precision. "How are they doing this?" Zixthara demanded as two of her escort ships exploded in balls of flame. "Unknown, Admiral. Their technology readings are inconsistent with our intelligence reports." The human ship's communication system crackled to life. The voice was different from before, harder, filled with cold rage. "This is Captain Sarah Martinez of the UES Retribution. You murdered innocent civilians. You chose to be monsters. Now you die like monsters." What followed was not a battle, but a systematic execution. The human ship danced between the Caltharian vessels, its weapons finding weak points with impossible accuracy. Energy shields collapsed under sustained bombardment from projectile weapons, moving at fractions of light speed. Armor plating meant to withstand planetary bombardment crumpled like foil. Zixathara watched in growing horror as her fleet was torn apart, ship by ship. The humans fought with a fury and precision she had never encountered. Their vessel absorbed damage that should have crippled it and kept fighting. When their primary weapons overheated, secondary batteries continued the assault. When those failed, they rammed damaged Caltharian ships at full speed, using their own hull as a weapon. "Admiral, we've lost 37 ships," reported her tactical officer, his voice shaking. "Recommend immediate retreat." "We cannot retreat from a single primitive vessel," Zixathera snarled, but even as she spoke, another dreadnought exploded, under the human ship's relentless fire. 18 minutes after the battle began, the UES Retribution hung alone in space among the burning wreckage of the Caltharian fleet. Only Zixathera's flagship remained intact, its weapons systems destroyed, engines crippled. The human captain's voice came through the communication system one final time. "You came here to terrorize refugees and murder innocents. Instead, you found something else. Something you should have left alone." What are you?" Zixathera whispered. "We are the children of Earth," Captain Martinez replied. "And Earth remembers all her children." The Retribution's final salvo turned the Caltharian flagship into expanding plasma. But before the explosion, the ship's emergency beacon transmitted a final message across the galaxy, broadcasting on all frequencies so every species would hear. "To all who prey on the innocent, we know what you did here. We know who you are. We will find you. This is not a threat. This is a promise. Earth remembers." In the ruins of New Geneva, the few survivors emerged from underground shelters to see burning wreckage falling from the sky like metal rain. They had lost everything: their homes, their families, their hope of peaceful settlement among the stars. But something else had been born in those flames. Word would spread through the galaxy's underground networks, whispered in slave pens and refugee camps. The humans had fought back. The humans had won. The message from Captain Martinez continued broadcasting long after the Retribution limped, away to tend its wounds, carrying news of the colony's destruction back to Earth. The signal spread through hyperspace communication networks, translated into hundreds of languages, shared by countless species who had suffered under the boot of galactic tyranny. Earth remembers. The Caltharian hegemony would soon learn what those words truly meant. Deep in the Sol system, automated monitoring stations received the transmission from New Geneva. The loss of the colony hit Earth like a physical blow, but the rage that followed was cold and calculating. 300 years of human military development had created something the galaxy had never seen. A species that viewed warfare not as conquest, but as justice. Fleet Admiral Chen reviewed the tactical data from the Retribution's battle. The Caltharians were fast but predictable, powerful but overconfident. Their ships relied on energy shields and conventional tactics unchanged for millennia. They had never faced humanity's gift for adaptation and innovation in warfare. "Signal the Admiralty," she ordered. "Begin mobilization of First Fleet. Full combat deployment." The first lesson was complete. Soon the galaxy would learn there were many more to come. High Command of the Caltharian hegemony had not convened an emergency session in over 2 centuries. The great crystal hall beneath the capital city of Calth Prime buzzed with nervous energy as military leaders gathered to address an unprecedented crisis. General Vorthak, Supreme Commander of all Caltharian forces, stood before the assembled officers. His normally perfect uniform showed signs of haste, the first time anyone could remember seeing him anything less than immaculate. "The third subjugation fleet has been completely destroyed," he announced, his words echoing in the vast chamber. 52 ships, 15,000 personnel, all lost to a single primitive vessel. Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the assembly. Fleet Admiral Kixmari, veteran of 100 campaigns, stood up. "Sir, with respect, that cannot be accurate. Our intelligence reports confirmed that the SOL-3 system possesses only basic nuclear technology, chemical rockets at best. How could they—" "See for yourself," Vorthak interrupted, activating a holographic display. The assembled officers watched in stunned silence as the battle record played out before them. The human ship's impossible maneuvers, its devastating weapons, the systematic destruction of an entire Caltharian fleet. Some of the older commanders had served for centuries without seeing such carnage. "Analysis suggests the humans discovered ancient precursor technology," Vorthak continued. "There is no other explanation for these capabilities. A mining vessel does not move like this. Chemical propulsion cannot generate such acceleration. What do we know about this?" "Earth?" asked Admiral Zixkoth from the rear of the assembly. Intelligence Commander Velthara stepped forward, her datapad glowing with compiled reports. Sol 3, designated Earth by its inhabitants. Single planetary system with approximately 8 billion sapient life forms. Technological development appears inconsistent. They possess nuclear weapons but still use fossil fuels for energy. No evidence of faster-than-light travel or advanced materials science. Yet somehow they destroyed an entire fleet, Vorthak said grimly. Which means our intelligence is fatally flawed. The silence stretched uncomfortably until Fleet Marshal Kethamorian rose from his seat. He was the youngest officer to ever achieve such rank, known for his aggressive tactics and unwavering confidence. I volunteer to lead the response fleet, he announced. Give me the Third Armada and I will correct this anomaly. Several officers shifted uncomfortably. The Third Armada represented the largest military formation in hegemony history. 300 ships of the line, including 40 dreadnoughts and the pride of the Caltharian Navy. Marshal, Admiral Kixmari said carefully. Perhaps we should attempt diplomatic contact first. If they possess precursor technology. Diplomacy? Kethmorian's voice dripped with contempt. They murdered Admiral Zixthara and destroyed an entire fleet. The only message we can send now is one written in fire and blood. General Vorthak considered the proposal. The Third Armada had never been fully deployed in combat. It was designed as the ultimate deterrent, too powerful for any system to resist. Against a single world with stolen alien technology, surely it would be sufficient. Very well, Marshal. You have command of the Third Armada. Destroy this Earth and recover whatever precursor artifacts they have found. Make an example that will remind the galaxy why the hegemony rules. Meanwhile, in the deep lunar command bunkers, beneath Earth's surface, Admiral Sarah Chen studied intelligence reports from across the galaxy. The destruction of New Geneva had triggered a massive shift in galactic politics. Species that had suffered under Caltharian rule for millennia were suddenly asking dangerous questions. Ma'am, her aide reported, long-range monitoring stations are detecting massive hyperspace distortions in Caltharian space. Energy signatures suggest fleet movements on an unprecedented scale. Chen nodded grimly. She had expected this response. The Caltharians could not allow New Geneva's revenge to go unanswered without appearing weak to their subject species. They would come with overwhelming force, confident that sheer numbers would prevail. They did not understand what they were really facing. Signal Fleet Command, she ordered. Execute Protocol 7. Deploy First Fleet to defensive positions in the outer system. The preparations began immediately. Across the Sol system, shipyards that had been quietly building humanity's defenses for 3 centuries burst into activity. Luna's industrial complexes launched their products, sleek warships bearing the angular design philosophy that had evolved through countless conflicts on Earth itself. First Fleet was humanity's pride, but it was also their secret. While Earth appeared primitive to outside observers, the reality was far different. Nuclear technology had been the beginning, not the end of human development. Fusion reactors powered massive orbital installations. Antimatter engines drove ships faster than anything in known space. Kinetic weapons accelerated projectiles to significant fractions of light speed. But most importantly, humanity had never stopped fighting. While other species enjoyed peace under their various empires, humans had spent 3 centuries perfecting the art of warfare. Every conflict on Earth had taught new lessons, developed new tactics, created new technologies. The Caltharians were about to face 300 years of human military evolution. Fleet Marshal Kethamorian emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system with supreme confidence. 300 ships in perfect formation, their crystal hulls gleaming with deadly purpose. Long-range sensors immediately detected the human fleet waiting in the outer system. 200 vessels, his tactical officer reported. Similar design to the ship that destroyed the subjugation fleet, but larger. Much larger. Kethamorian studied the formation on his display. The human ships hung motionless in space, arranged in a defensive sphere around the inner system. They made no move to attack or retreat, simply waited with the patience of predators. Open a communication channel, he ordered. The response came immediately, the voice calm and professional. This is Admiral Elizabeth Santos of the United Earth Defense Force. You have committed acts of genocide against human civilians. Surrender now, or be destroyed. Kethamorian's laughter echoed across the bridge. You face the Third Armada of the Caltharian hegemony. 300 ships. Surrender to us, and your deaths will be quick. Marshal, Admiral Santos replied, her tone unchanged. You clearly don't understand what you're facing. This is your final warning. Attack formation, Kethmorian commanded. All ships, full advance. Show these primitives the true meaning of power. The Third Armada surged forward. Energy weapons charging, missile tubes loaded. It was the most beautiful and terrifying sight in galactic warfare. Hundreds of crystal ships moving in perfect synchronization, their combined firepower capable of cracking planets. The human fleet's response was immediate and devastating. Kinetic projectiles moving at 20% of light speed struck the Caltharian formation before their sensors could even register the launch. Ships that had survived centuries of warfare simply vanished in explosions of superheated metal and plasma. Point defense systems that could track 1 million targets simultaneously carved through missile barrages like scythes through wheat. But it was the electronic warfare that truly demonstrated humanity's advancement. Caltharian ships began firing on each other as their navigation systems were compromised. Communication networks collapsed under viral attacks that propagated through quantum encrypted channels thought to be unbreakable. How are they doing this? Kethmorian screamed as his flagship shuddered under impact from its own escort vessels. His tactical officer's voice was barely a whisper. Sir, they're using our ships against us. Their electronic warfare capabilities are beyond anything in our database. The battle lasted 47 minutes longer than the fight at New Geneva, but only because the Third Armada was so much larger. Ship by ship, the pride of the Caltharian Navy was systematically dismantled by an enemy that fought with precision, innovation, and cold fury. When it was over, Admiral Santos transmitted a new message that would echo across the galaxy. Attention, all Caltharian forces. This was First Fleet of the United Earth Defense Force. We have 10 more just like it. Earth remembers what you did to our people. Earth remembers, and Earth is coming. In the wreckage of the Third Armada, a single escape pod transmitted the final battle report back to Caltharian High Command. The message was brief and devastating. The humans do not possess precursor technology. They are the precursors. The emergency beacon from the Third Armada's sole survivor reached Caltharian High Command 18 hours after the battle. General Vorthak read the transmission 3 times before he could accept what it said. The Third Armada, 300 of the most advanced warships in known space, had been completely destroyed by a primitive species that should have been cowering in caves. Impossible, he whispered, staring at the tactical data. 200 ships cannot destroy 300. The mathematics do not work. But the evidence was undeniable. The human fleet had moved with coordination that suggested a single mind controlling every vessel. Their weapons had punched through energy shields that could deflect stellar radiation. Their electronic warfare capabilities had turned Caltharian ships into weapons against their own fleet. Intelligence Commander Velthara entered his office without ceremony, her usually perfect composure cracked with exhaustion and fear. Sir, Deep Space Reconnaissance has returned with additional data about the human system, she reported, placing a data crystal on his desk. The situation is far worse than we initially assessed. Vorthak activated the crystal, watching as holographic displays filled his office. What he saw made his blood freeze in his veins. Earth was not just one world. It was the heart of an industrial empire that spanned an entire star system. Luna's surface was covered with massive shipyards, their construction, bays launching vessels by the dozen. Mars hosted military installations that dwarfed Caltharian fortress worlds. The asteroid belt swarmed with mining operations and defensive platforms. How long has this been developing? He asked quietly. Our analysts estimate 3 centuries of continuous military buildup, Velthara replied. They have been preparing for large-scale warfare while we assumed they were primitive savages. The displays showed more disturbing data. Energy signatures indicated that the human fleet Admiral Santos commanded was indeed just First Fleet, as she had claimed. Deep space sensors had detected at least 10 more formations of similar size and capability throughout human space. 2,000 ships, Vorthak said, his voice barely audible. They have 2,000 warships. At minimum, sir. Our intelligence suggests they may have significantly more forces in reserve. The general sat heavily in his command chair, the weight of the disaster pressing down on him. The Caltharian Navy possessed 800 ships total, scattered across dozens of systems to maintain order. Even if he recalled every vessel, they would still be outnumbered 3-1 by an enemy that had already proven superior in every aspect of warfare. What do you recommend? He asked. Velthara hesitated before responding. Full defensive deployment, sir. Recall all fleets to core systems, and hope they are satisfied with driving us back. Hope? Vorthak's mandibles clicked, in bitter amusement. The foundation of our strategy is now hope? Before she could answer, Alarms began blaring throughout the command center. Emergency lights bathed the crystal halls in red as communications officers rushed to their stations. "Report," Vorthera demanded. "Sir, we're receiving priority transmissions from the Vegan cluster. Human ships have appeared in the Rigel system. They're broadcasting the same message Admiral Santos sent after destroying the Third Armada." More reports flooded in over the next few hours. Human fleets had appeared simultaneously in a dozen systems across Caltharian space. They made no move to attack, simply took up positions and broadcast their message of remembered vengeance. But their presence sent shockwaves through every world under hegemony control. The reaction was swift and devastating to Caltharian authority. On Proxima Colony, the local governor attempted to mobilize defensive forces only to discover that his own security forces had declared independence. The garrison commander announced that Proxima would no longer pay tribute to a power that could not protect them from human retribution. Similar scenes played out across dozens of worlds. Species that had been ground under Caltharian rule for centuries suddenly saw opportunity in the chaos. If humans could destroy entire fleets with ease, what protection could the hegemony really offer? The reports reached Vorthak's desk in an endless stream. Rebellions on 12 worlds. Trade convoys refusing to carry tribute shipments. Colonial governors declaring neutrality rather than face potential human attack. The empire that had ruled for 3 millennia was crumbling in a matter of days. "Sir," his aide reported nervously, "we're receiving a direct communication from Earth. They're requesting a formal diplomatic channel." Vorthak almost laughed. After destroying 2 entire fleets, the humans wanted to talk. Perhaps there was still hope for negotiation, some way to prevent total annihilation. "Put them through." The holographic display activated, showing a human in simple military uniform. The being appeared unremarkable. Bipedal, mammalian, no obvious signs of the advanced biotechnology that usually accompanied such military capability. "General Vorthak," the human said calmly. "I am Secretary James Morrison of Earth's Diplomatic Corps. I believe we need to discuss the future of this galaxy." "You have destroyed 2 of our fleets," Vorthak replied, struggling to keep his voice steady. "What is left to discuss?" "The end of the Caltharian hegemony," Morrison said simply. "The question is whether that end comes through negotiation or through the complete military annihilation of your species." "You threaten genocide?" Morrison's expression remained unchanged. "We threaten justice, General. Your empire has enslaved dozens of species, murdered billions of innocent people, and terrorized entire sectors of space for 3,000 years. That ends now." "What do you want?" Vorthak asked, though he already suspected the answer would be impossible to accept. "Immediate cessation of all forced tribute collection, release of all slave populations, dismantling of your military fleet, democratic governments established on all Caltharian worlds, war crimes tribunals for military leaders responsible for genocide and slavery." Each demand struck Vorthak like a physical blow. Morrison was not offering terms of surrender. He was demanding the complete transformation of Caltharian civilization. "And if we refuse?" Morrison gestured, and the display showed real-time positions of human fleets throughout the galaxy. They had moved with impossible speed, taking up positions near every major Caltharian system. Some fleets were larger than others, but all showed the same devastating weapon signatures that had annihilated the Third Armada. "General, let me be clear about something," Morrison continued. "What you faced at Sol was First Fleet, our smallest, oldest formation. The fleets now positioned throughout your space represent our current military capability. We have 17 active battle groups, with more launching from our shipyards every month." 17 fleets, Vorthak whispered. "We are not conquerors, General. We have no desire to rule other species or extract tribute from unwilling populations. But we will not allow the systematic oppression that has defined this galaxy to continue. One way or another, the age of empire ends today." The transmission ended, leaving Vorthak alone with the magnitude of Earth's ultimatum. 17 fleets meant over 3,000 human warships, each apparently superior to anything in Caltharian service. Even if every species in known space united against them, the humans would still possess overwhelming military superiority. But it was not just the numbers that terrified him. It was the cold precision with which they had deployed their forces. While Caltharian commanders had spent centuries managing rebellions and collecting tribute, the humans had clearly spent that time studying warfare itself. They moved like a species that had never known true peace, that had refined conflict into an art form. His communication system chimed with another urgent message. This one came from Admiral Zixkoth, commanding the defense of the home system. Sir, human vessels have just emerged from hyperspace at the edge of our system. 40 ships in perfect formation. They're broadcasting a message. Vorthak closed his eyes, knowing what he would hear. This is Admiral Rebecca Chen of Earth's Fifth Fleet, the recording said. We are here to ensure compliance with Earth's diplomatic overtures. Any attempt to launch military action against human forces or allied species will result in the immediate sterilization of Caltharian military installations. Sir? Zixkoth's voice cracked with barely controlled fear. Our long-range sensors show these ships are larger than anything we've encountered. Energy signatures suggest weapons capabilities that exceed our planetary defense systems. Vorthak opened his eyes, staring at the tactical displays that showed human fleets positioned like a noose around every important Caltharian system. The species he had dismissed as primitives had revealed themselves to be the most advanced military power in galactic history, and they had been watching, waiting, planning this moment for centuries. Signal all commands, he said quietly. Stand down all military operations. Prepare for negotiations. The Caltharian hegemony, master of the galaxy for 3 millennia, had lasted exactly 72 hours against humanity's patient fury. Earth remembered, and Earth had come to collect. The council chamber of Calth Prime had witnessed many historic moments over 3 millennia of galactic dominance. Ancient victories had been celebrated here, conquered species had knelt in submission, tribute fleets had been blessed before departure. Never before had it hosted a meeting to discuss the surrender of the entire Caltharian hegemony. General Vorthak sat at the head of the ancient crystal table, surrounded by the most powerful military commanders and political leaders in Caltharian space. The emergency session had been called after 48 hours of devastating reports from across their territory. Status report from the outer colonies, he commanded. Intelligence Commander Velthera stood, her datapad glowing with updates that arrived faster than she could process them. 17 systems have declared independence. 23 colonial governors have announced they will no longer collect tribute. The Rigel trade routes have been completely abandoned. What about our fleet deployments? Asked Admiral Zixkoth. Fourth, fleet reports human vessels maintaining position outside the Centauri system. They make no aggressive moves but respond to any approach with weapons lock. Sixth Fleet attempted reconnaissance of human positions near Vega and lost 3 ships to what appeared to be automated defense platforms. Fleet Marshal Kethamorian, one of the few survivors of the Third Armada's destruction, spoke from his medical chair. Burns covered half his body, but his mind remained sharp. The humans are not conquering our territory. They are simply existing near it. Their presence alone is enough to trigger systemic collapse. The truth of his words hung heavy in the chamber. The Caltharian hegemony had ruled through fear and overwhelming force for so long that the mere possibility of defeat had shattered their authority. Colonial populations that had submitted for generations suddenly saw hope for freedom. How many human fleets have been confirmed? Vorthak asked quietly. Velthara consulted her data. Direct observation has confirmed 12 separate formations. Each appears to consist of between 150 to 250 vessels. However, deep space sensors suggest additional formations operating beyond our detection range. 2,000 ships minimum, Admiral Zixkoth calculated aloud, possibly significantly more. The numbers were devastating when compared to Caltharian capabilities. Their entire navy consisted of 800 vessels, many of them centuries old and equipped with technology that now seemed primitive by comparison. Even with perfect coordination and ideal battle conditions, they would be fighting at a 3-to-1 disadvantage against an enemy that had already demonstrated complete tactical superiority. What do we know about their actual capabilities? Asked Councillor Vixithani, the senior civilian authority present. Marshal Kethamorian activated his personal display, showing the tactical analysis compiled from the Third Armada's destruction. Their ships move faster than anything in our database. Acceleration curves suggest propulsion systems operating on principles we do not understand. Their weapons can penetrate our strongest shields, and their electronic warfare capabilities can turn our own vessels against us. But surely, Councillor Vixthani protested, they cannot maintain such a large fleet indefinitely. The resource requirements alone. Counselor, Velthera interrupted. Our intelligence assessment suggests the opposite. Earth's industrial capacity exceeds our own by orders of magnitude. They have been building continuously for 3 centuries while we, focused on maintaining control over existing territories. She activated a holographic display showing the Sol system in detail. Luna alone hosts 12 major shipyards. Mars has converted its entire northern continent to military production. The asteroid belt contains thousands of automated mining and manufacturing platforms. They are not straining to maintain their current force levels. They are expanding them. The silence that followed was broken by the chamber's communications system activating. The crystal walls filled with the image of a human, the same diplomatic representative who had contacted General Vorthak previously. "General Counselors, I hope this message finds you well," Secretary Morrison said pleasantly. "I wanted to provide an update on the situation developing throughout your former territory." Former territory. The casual dismissal of 3 millennia of conquest sent chills through every person in the chamber. As you may have heard, 17 of your colonial systems have declared independence. Earth has formally recognized these new governments and extended them full diplomatic protection. Any attempt to re-establish Caltharian control will be considered an act of aggression against Earth allies. Morrison paused, consulting a datapad. "I should also inform you that our intelligence networks have identified the locations of all active Caltharian naval assets. We are prepared to neutralize any fleet movements that might threaten newly liberated populations." The display shifted to show a tactical map of known space. Red dots marked Caltharian naval positions while blue indicators showed human fleets. The humans had positioned forces to intercept any possible military response, creating a web of coverage that made coordinated resistance impossible. "However, I want to emphasize that Earth has no desire for unnecessary bloodshed," Morrison continued. "We are prepared to discuss terms for the peaceful transition of remaining Caltharian territories to self-governance. I hope you will consider this opportunity carefully." The transmission ended, leaving the Council in stunned silence. The human had not issued threats or demanded immediate surrender. He had simply stated facts and offered negotiation. The understated confidence was more terrifying than any military posturing. "He is offering us terms," Councillor Vixthani said weakly. "Perhaps we can negotiate some form of continued autonomy." General Vorthak laughed bitterly. "Autonomy? Look at the tactical display. They have positioned fleets to cut off every major Caltharian system from mutual support. They know the location of every ship in our navy. Do you think these humans have left anything to chance?" Admiral Zixkoth leaned forward, studying the holographic map. "Sir, I count positions for 15 distinct human fleets on this display. Morrison claimed they have 17 active battle groups. Where are the other 2? Marshal Kethamorian asked. The answer came from Velthera's communication board as priority alerts began flashing. "Sir, long-range sensors are detecting massive hyperspace signatures approaching the home system. Multiple large vessels emerging from jump. 78 ships in perfect formation." "Show me," Vorthak commanded. The chamber's main display activated, showing real-time sensor data from the outer system. Human vessels materialized from hyperspace with the precision of a choreographed dance. Their formation was beautiful and terrifying, a geometric pattern that spoke of absolute confidence and control. "This is Admiral Rebecca Chen of Earth's 5th Fleet," came the broadcast. "We are here to provide security during diplomatic negotiations. Any military vessels approaching within 1 light hour of this position will be disabled or destroyed." 78 ships, not the massive formations they had observed elsewhere, but positioned with surgical precision to dominate the approaches to Calth Prime itself. The message was clear. Earth could reach anywhere in Caltharian space whenever they chose. "Sir," Velthara reported with barely controlled panic, "we're receiving similar reports from 6 other core systems. Human fleets have appeared simultaneously throughout our most heavily defended territory." The mathematics of the situation became brutally clear. The humans had not simply built a larger navy. They had created a military machine capable of coordinated operations across hundreds of light years with split-second timing. The level of organization required suggested a command and control infrastructure that made Caltharian capabilities look primitive. "How long have they been watching us?" Councillor Vixithani asked in a whisper. "Centuries," General Vorthak replied, with certainty. "They have been studying our fleet movements, our defensive positions, our political structures. This entire operation was planned before the first shot was fired." The realization was devastating. While the Caltharian hegemony had grown complacent with easy victories over primitive species, humanity had been preparing for war against a galactic empire. They had built not just superior weapons and ships, but superior intelligence networks, Logistic systems and strategic planning capabilities. General, Admiral Zixkoth said quietly, I recommend immediate acceptance of human terms. Whatever they offer will be better than total annihilation. Do we have any other choice? Vorthak asked, though he already knew the answer. The Council of the Caltharian Hegemony, rulers of 1,000 worlds, had been reduced to hoping for mercy from the species they had dismissed as primitives. The empire that had dominated the galaxy for 3 millennia would not survive the week. Earth had remembered. Earth had planned. Earth had come. And the galaxy would never be the same. In the silence that followed, General Vorthak composed the message that would formally request negotiations for the surrender of the Caltharian hegemony. 3,000 years of galactic dominance would end not with glorious battle, but with the quiet recognition that they had encountered something beyond their understanding. Humanity had spent centuries learning the mathematics of warfare while the galaxy slept. Now it was time to pay the bill. Ambassador Calthira's diplomatic vessel approached Earth's outer perimeter, with all the caution of a prey animal entering a predator's territory. Her ship flew every possible surrender flag and broadcast diplomatic immunity codes on 17 different frequencies. She had volunteered for this mission not out of bravery, but because someone had to do it and she was considered expendable if the humans decided to make an example. The response from Earth Traffic Control was polite and professional. Ambassador Calthira, you are cleared for approach to Diplomatic Station Luna. Please maintain your current heading and prepare for escort. 2 human vessels materialized beside her ship with impossible precision. They were smaller than the massive warships she had observed in intelligence reports, but their energy signatures still dwarfed her diplomatic cruiser. The escort was courteous, but carried an unmistakable message. Earth controlled this space. Absolutely. Luna Diplomatic Station was a marvel of engineering that spoke to human industrial capabilities. The facility was larger than most Caltharian military bases, built into the lunar surface with graceful curves that managed to be both beautiful and obviously defensible. Docking procedures were flawless, handled by automated systems that guided her ship with gentle precision. Secretary James Morrison met her personally at the airlock, a courtesy that surprised her. The human was exactly as he had appeared in their communications, unremarkable in appearance but carrying himself with quiet confidence. He wore simple civilian clothing with no obvious signs of rank or authority. Ambassador Calthira, he said, warmly, extending his hand in the human greeting gesture. Welcome to Luna Station. I hope your journey was comfortable. Secretary Morrison, she replied carefully, still uncertain of human diplomatic protocols. Thank you for agreeing to these negotiations. Of course. Though I should clarify something immediately. These are not negotiations in the traditional sense. Earth's terms are non-negotiable. What we are discussing today is the implementation timeline and support mechanisms. The bluntness was unexpected but somehow reassuring. At least the humans were honest about their intentions. Morrison led her through corridors lined with viewports showing Earth hanging in space like a blue jewel. The sight was beautiful, but Calthira found herself wondering how such a peaceful-looking world had produced the most terrifying military force in galactic history. Your planet is lovely, she commented. It is, Morrison agreed. And worth protecting. That's something I think you'll come to understand during our discussions. The conference room was modest by diplomatic standards. A simple table, comfortable chairs, and holographic displays for data sharing. Morrison gestured for her to sit while an aide provided refreshments. The human coffee was bitter but warming, and she found herself appreciating the gesture of hospitality. Shall we begin with the basic framework? Morrison asked, activating a holographic display. Earth's requirements are straightforward. Immediate cessation of all forced tribute collection throughout former Caltharian space. Release of all slave populations with full reparations. Dismantling of offensive military capabilities. Democratic government structures established on all inhabited worlds. Each item appeared on the display as he spoke, along with detailed implementation, guidelines that showed months of careful planning. What about Caltharian sovereignty? Calthira asked, though she suspected she knew the answer. Calth Prime and the core systems will remain under Caltharian control, provided they adopt democratic governance and agree to regular humanitarian monitoring. Your people have the right to self-determination, but not the right to oppress others. Morrison paused, studying her reaction. I understand this represents a significant change from your traditional governmental structure. Earth is prepared to provide technical assistance and economic support during the transition period. And if we refuse? The display changed to show real-time positions of human fleets throughout the galaxy. Kelthira counted 17 distinct formations, each positioned to dominate key strategic points in former hegemony space. "Ambassador, let me be direct," Morrison said gently. "Your military conducted orbital bombardments against civilian populations. Your governments enslaved entire species for centuries. These are not political differences, they are crimes against sapient life that cannot continue." "How many fleets does Earth actually possess?" she asked quietly. Morrison smiled. "Currently operational? 17 active battle groups, as we've discussed. But Luna's shipyards launch new vessels every month. Mars facilities are expanding production capacity. The asteroid mining operations provide virtually unlimited raw materials." He gestured to another display showing Earth's industrial infrastructure. "Ambassador, your people have been asking the wrong question. You want to know how many ships we have. What you should be asking is how many ships we can build." The implications were staggering. Earth was not simply militarily superior. They possessed the industrial capacity to maintain that superiority indefinitely. Any attempt at rebuilding Keltharian military power would be met by exponentially greater human production. "What happens to species that cooperate with these changes?" she asked. "Full membership in the Galactic Democratic Alliance," Morrison replied, activating a new display. "Free trade agreements, mutual defense pacts, technological exchange programs, cultural and educational cooperation." The hologram showed a vision of galactic civilization that was radically different from the hegemony model. Instead of tribute flowing upward to a central authority, the display showed networks of cooperation and mutual benefit, connecting dozens of species. 17 systems have already joined, Morrison continued. Former Keltharian colonies that declared independence. They are experiencing unprecedented economic growth and social development. And systems that resist? The display changed to show human fleets maintaining positions around uncooperative worlds. Isolation and containment until they reconsider. No trade, no diplomatic contact, no access to the wider galactic community. Most governments find this persuasive. Kelthira reviewed the terms displayed before her. They were comprehensive, clearly written, and completely non-negotiable. But they were also surprisingly fair to populations that had never known freedom under Keltharian rule. "Secretary Morrison," she said carefully, "may I ask why Earth is taking this approach? You possess overwhelming military superiority. You could simply conquer and rule as the hegemony did." Morrison leaned back in his chair considering the question. "Because conquest creates rebels, Ambassador. Rule through fear creates resentment that lasts for generations. We learned these lessons from our own history, the hard way." He activated another display showing scenes from Earth's past. Wars, revolutions, the rise and fall of empires. Humanity spent millennia fighting each other before we reached the stars. We know the cost of oppression, both to the oppressed and the oppressor. We will not repeat those mistakes on a galactic scale. So you prefer to rule through what? Benevolence? We prefer not to rule at all, Morrison said simply. What Earth wants is a galaxy where every species can develop according to their own nature, trade freely with their neighbors, and resolve disputes through negotiation rather than warfare. That is impossible while systems like the hegemony exist, the FAO. Conference continued for several hours as Morrison outlined implementation timelines, support mechanisms, and transition procedures. The level of detail was extraordinary. Earth had planned not just the military campaign to destroy Keltharian power, but the entire process of building something better in its place. As the session concluded, Kelthira found herself with one final question. "Secretary, the galaxy has known empire for millennia. Species expect to be ruled by something larger than themselves. How do you prevent new hegemonies from forming?" Morrison's smile was gentle but carried unmistakable steel. "Earth's fleets will remain active for as long as necessary. We are not conquerors, Ambassador, but we are very good at preventing conquest by others. Any species that attempts to recreate the old imperial model will find themselves facing the same choice you face today." The return journey to Calth Prime gave Kelthira time to process what she had experienced. Earth's terms were not surrender conditions but transformation requirements. The humans were not seeking to replace Keltharian dominance with their own. They were seeking to ensure that no such dominance could ever exist again. Her final report to the Keltharian Council was brief and unambiguous. Earth possesses the Military capability to enforce their will throughout the galaxy. They possess the industrial capacity to maintain this superiority indefinitely. They possess the political vision to offer something better than mere conquest. Recommendation: full compliance with all terms. Alternative: extinction. 6 months later, the former Caltharian hegemony had become the Caltharian Republic. Free elections had been held on 47 worlds. Slave populations had been liberated and provided with reparations. Trade networks had been restructured from tribute extraction to voluntary exchange. Similar transformations were occurring throughout the galaxy as news of Earth's liberation fleets spread to systems that had never known freedom. Species that had been ground under the boot of various empires for centuries suddenly saw hope for something different.